And we are live on YouTube. Okay. Might be confusing for someone who was just on my Facebook or Twitter, but I accidentally broadcasted there and didn't broadcast here. But I'm just watching this documentary Out of Shadows, and I thought it would be cool to share my reaction to it. And if anybody wants to watch it with me, as well, I can do that, and I'll put that link in the description. But without further ado, I'm gonna pick up where I left off and then give my thoughts afterwards.
Because they were most vulnerable.
We did quite a study of prostitutes and their behavior. How do you take a woman who is willing to use her body to get money out of a guy to get him to talk about things which are much more important, like state secrets? We learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom. We started to pick up knowledge that could be used in operations.
There would be victims in all of this. As one agency memo says, we have no answer to the moral question.
That's one of the CIA's favorite tactic, are honeypots. And I work with CIA psychologists, and they're dirty.
I always felt that every house should have its own secret panel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. You lift this up.
Mm-hmm. This is a trap door. Opens up and looks into the cave, or what time is called the Wu Grotto.
Boy.
They're running blackmail operations where they're getting very well-known government and private industry elite people in compromising positions at the Playboy Mansion, on Epstein's plane, on Orgy Island, and they're photographing them. And after that, it's like Congressman so-and-so or CEO so-and-so. I wouldn't bring that up if I was you, because we got photographs of you with a 14-year-old girl on Epstein's plane, for example. And you talk about shutting somebody up permanently, that's how they do it.
What happens in the grotto stays in the grotto.
Okay.
Look, it's pretty simple if you think about it. To control the population, you have to control the people messaging the population. Some of these stars have 20, 30 million followers. That's more followers than CNN, Fox, ABC, NBC. These people have to be controlled. They can't just go off a message and start saying whatever they want to say. They have to be somewhat reined in. They have to be controlled, or they do not get the platform to have the voice that they have.
Wow.
Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the ball. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long, where they tell you what to believe all day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game
Shout out to Charlie Robinson.
Nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hardworking people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hardworking people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't care about you at all, at all, at all. Yeah. You know? And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on. The fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant, because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
If you stop for a second and you just look at the bigger picture and you check out for a minute and you kind of compare the ancient times to today. Well, back then they had like what, demigods and gods. They were like Achilles, Hercules, Apollo, Mercury. All these were demigods. And that's who the people in those days looked up to. Well, today we have all these people like Jay-Z, Rihanna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry. In film, we have Brad Pitt, Will Smith. We have all these big stars. And the way they prop them up and they put them up on stage is like they're gods or demigods.
In this room are some of the most important TV and film executives in the world, people from every background, but they all have one thing in common. They're all terrified of Ronan Farrow. He's coming for you. He's coming for you. Look, talking of all you perverts, it was a big year. It was a big year for paedophile movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Neverland, Two Popes. Shut up. Shut up. I don't care. I don't care.
Oh man, he does not look happy, does he?
Most people don't want to cross the psychological line that this stuff is going on. And we all have a mental defense mechanism. It's like finally admitting there's an elite pedophile ring. I mean, most people just don't want to go there. And the same is here. Psychologically, you lose your safety, your security, and whatever innocence you have when you realize that this stuff is really going on. And it's a chore to cross over that barrier and realize, oh my gosh, this stuff is really happening. And that's why it takes critical thinking. The people have got to look at this stuff critically and see what they're being fed so they can cross that psychological line that they just refuse to see it when it's right in front of them.
When Kevin said there's an elite pedophile ring, well, I'm thinking to myself, this is a hard thing for me to come to terms with. Now, it made me start thinking about conversations and things I'd heard, but I'd never saw it. It's not out in the open. And to me, I was like, no one could do that. Because, I mean, if I saw someone hurting a kid, I would kill them. I mean, I would literally kill them. I would never allow someone to hurt a child in front of me. Things Kevin was saying were things that were hard for me to cross the barrier. I did not want to believe it. I didn't want to go there. But as I went down this journey, I forced myself to go consider, what if this is real? And the only person that was talking about this stuff was a girl named Liz Crokin. And the media had declared her completely out of her mind. But as I started researching some of the things she was reporting on, I was like, there's truth to what she's saying. So I want to talk to her.
I started working in journalism at a very young age. I got my first
Yes,
job
we get to
working
talk to her.
for Fox Chicago at about the age of 17 years old. At the University of Iowa, I studied political science and journalism. One semester, I interned for Bill O'Reilly at Fox News Channel. My last year in college, I interned for the State Department's White House reporter, and that placed me reporting in the White House every single day for a few months. I went on to work for the Chicago Tribune, and my first boss there told me that everything that I should get should be checked over and over and over again and verified to death. That's how I was trained, and that's what a true, honest journalist does. I started covering local politics and local hard news, and then eventually I got my own column for 7 years where I interviewed tons of celebrities and politicians and musicians, and worked at Us Weekly, and then at one point I worked at In Touch Weekly magazine. But then in 2015, I felt the need to get back into covering hard news. And in early 2016, I started working for Town Hall, and then eventually I started working for the New York Observer and broke a lot of election-related stories. I worked in media for over 2 decades, and I never had any issues. I was very well respected. I basically was embraced by the mainstream media until I started reporting on Pizzagate. Now, when Pizzagate came out, the media tried to turn Pizzagate into something that wasn't.
Surprises of the presidential campaign was the explosion of fake news on the internet.
28-year-old Edgar Welch was arrested in Washington Sunday afternoon outside Comet Ping Pong, a popular family pizza parlor. D.C. police say Welch fired at least one round into the restaurant floor with an AR-15 rifle like this one on his Facebook page. No one was injured.
Someone on Twitter, whose name remains unverified but has several thousand followers, posted that new emails found on Anthony Weiner's computer confirmed that Hillary Clinton was involved in a pedophilia ring. The rumor spread, inspiring some newfound internet sleuths to start digging around in John Podesta's hacked emails, searching for proof and location of the so-called sex ring.
In those emails, they are absolutely littered with code words. And many of these code words are food words, such as pizza.
Somebody said to me, "Hey, Dave, search for pizza in Podesta's emails. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you never really emerge the same person."
It was obvious from the get-go that these words were code words for something else because the context that they were used in did not make sense.
To be clear, not one single email in the Podesta emails discusses child sex trafficking or pedophilia. That is a fact. But there are dozens of what seem to be strangely worded emails dealing with pizza and handkerchiefs. And investigators say that those words in the emails about pizza and the talk of handkerchiefs is code language used by pedophiles.
There is some kind of code language. They're just not talking about pizza, folks. Who phrases that? Who blocks out an hour of time to eat a slice of pizza?
You can get a service for half an hour, you can get a massage for half an hour, but you can't get food for half an hour. It just absolutely makes no sense.
There's other ones like, the realtor found a handkerchief. I think it has a map that seems pizza related. And another one is, Obama spent $65,000 flying in pizza and hot dogs from Chicago. Are we using the same channels?
Pizza is a well-known pedophile code word that actually has been used by law enforcement to arrest online sexual predators of children. And there's been multiple arrests that have been made by law enforcement of pedophiles trying to solicit children by using the pedophile code word pizza.
2007 unclassified FBI document. That document, according to the FBI, contains commonly used symbols by pedophiles to express their preference in children. Notice this one on the end, the triangle. That image signifies something called boy love. The pizza place next door to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, Besta Pizza, well, this was their logo until only a few weeks ago.
People don't know that because the mainstream media refuses to cover it.
The entire mainstream media redefined what Pizzagate was to make it sound ridiculous and less believable. And then they had people like Megyn Kelly come in, interview James Alefantis, didn't ask him any challenging questions.
A conspiracy theory that even the DC police say has no basis in fact.
She didn't ask him any questions about the pictures of children on his Instagram page looking abused, being sexualized. She didn't ask him about the pedophile talk. So the whole mainstream media painted him as this poor victim, as this person that was innocent, that was just victimized, as something that wasn't true. But just his Instagram page alone should have been enough for authorities to look into him.
Investigators have already proven there's nothing to the story, right? Well, actually, no. And that's what you need to know. For all that is here, there has not been one single public investigation of any of this, not from local police, not from the FBI, no one. And that has to be the big question, not for Podesta or for pizza parlor owners, but for law enforcement. Based on what may be or may not be here, the big question is, why hasn't any investigation taken place?
This is insane.
So many people in the mainstream media have said, Pizzagate is a conspiracy theory. Pizzagate has been debunked. It has not been debunked. If it's been debunked, explain the code words. No one to this day, including John Podesta himself, can explain the code words in his emails.
Hey, John Podesta, can you please explain why you have children rented for entertainment for your adult hot tub parties? No one has ever explained why John Podesta has literal pedophile and cannibalism paintings all over his office and his home. Tony Podesta too. And then you look into the spirit cooking dinners, and you look into Marina Abramovic, who's the one that was conducting the spirit cooking dinners. Why are they going to spirit cooking dinners? Why are they sacrificing chicken Samoa in their backyard? This isn't my words. This is their words. This is in their emails.
I'd be willing to debate anyone who thinks that Pizzagate has been debunked?
You asked me when how am I getting additional briefings? That was the first and last time I
So
talked.
October 9th is the last time you have heard from the FBI at all.
Yes.
You have not got an update on the investigation to your personal email.
That is correct.
So not only did the mainstream media lie to you about Pizzagate, they actually told you that it was illegal to read John Podesta's emails on WikiLeaks. Chris Cuomo, with a straight face on CNN, looked into the cameras and said, it's illegal for you to read John Podesta's emails.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
That's how scared they are of those emails. And that's how explosive the content in those emails are. That they felt the need that they had to tell you, you could not read those emails. And if you do, you might get arrested. Lie.
It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
People that blow the whistle on elite pedophiles tend to have accidents. And a lot of those people have died mysteriously.
NBC News has learned that disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Epstein took his own life while he was behind bars.
There's absolutely no excuse for this. What happened here, to me, is mind-boggling. The guy was a high-risk prisoner, wasn't he? I mean, he's a guy that there are probably 50 very important people that have a motive to kill him. We don't even know who they are. It's true. But we know there are some people that are in a lot of trouble because of Epstein. They know who they are.
His flight logs contain names of some of the biggest, most famous, and most powerful people on the planet. Members of the royal family, Prince Andrew, models like Naomi Campbell, famous actors like Kevin Spacey, Bill Clinton on those flight logs over 25 times. Hillary Clinton, she's also been to the islands. So the bigger question is, how many people that went on his private jet, that went to his private island, that went to his massive ranch in New Mexico were also involved in the rape, torture, and trafficking of children?
It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was, legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever reason, they were afraid of him.
And the amazing thing about Cindy McCain is that her husband was a senator. She was on a board with the governor of Texas. She knew about Jeffrey Epstein. She did nothing. And her organization, the role of her organization is supposed to be to stop people like Jeffrey Epstein. They all knew. They did nothing about it. When Ricky Gervais said at the Golden Globes, you're all friends with Jeffrey Epstein, he wasn't lying.
So in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care. You had to make your own way here in your own plane, didn't you? Right.
And how many of those elites have been to his islands? Not only is the mainstream media complicit, I would argue that there are accessories in the crimes against children.
She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Then what happened in early 2018? Keith Raniere, who ran the NXIVM child sex trafficking cult, was arrested. Who else was arrested? Allison Mack. She's a famous celebrity who was on Smallville. She was also arrested for being a member of this cult. that was involved in trafficking children. And not only trafficking children, they were running preschools down in Mexico. And NXIVM is another example of how these elite pedophile rings exist, because this was a massive organization. This was funded by really wealthy people, including the Seagram heiresses, Nancy Salzman and Claire Bronfman. So obviously they were using those preschools to traffic children. And the cult also engaged in human torture experiments on some of their members. And there actually was a civil lawsuit that was filed by 90 of their victims just the other day. So I imagine we are going to hear more about the human experiments, the torturing, the sexual abuse, and the child sex trafficking in this civil lawsuit. And a lot of the techniques that we see in this cult are very similar to the techniques that our government used in the MKUltra program.
He was branding women with Keith's initials, and they were like, well, what's the bad thing exactly about that? Everyone in the outside world, AKA the real world, is like, they're branding women? So I left. I went to the executive board and I said, I want my photos back. I want my videos back. The branding session was filmed. I want all of that back. I want my collateral back. None of that happened.
And it's the same fear, mind control, and you'll be destroyed if you get into the upper elites. And if you get to that point, if you start revealing anything, they have the same system to completely destroy you, destroy your career, blackmail you like Epstein, catch you, film you in compromising positions. And this goes both within Hollywood and celebrities and some of the elite. And it also goes on in Congress and the Senate. And if they even insinuate that they're going to reveal some of these things, they're done.
A lot of people here tonight felt like they lost. You know why? Because y'all been lied to. Google lied to you. Google. Facebook lied to you. Radio lied to you.
The powerful people that be, whether it's the music industry or the movie industry, you are only allowed a certain level of success if you are willing to join their club, if you're willing to be part of their secret society, or if you're compromised. They will not let someone obtain a lot of fame and power if they can't control you.
A classic example, at least for me, is Katy Perry. Katy Perry was a gospel singer, very talented, but she was going nowhere. And she got up to Hollywood and basically they said, you want to be a success? You play by our rules. You step into the occult and you start putting that in your videos. And now she's doing videos with her in hell with satanic themes, and she's what? Highly successful. You see that over with Lady Gaga, who came out and actually said she was so tired of being handled and manipulated, she had to take a break.
That this is this young, outrageous girl, wears strange clothes. She's into extremes. She's experimental. She have 43 million people on the Twitter following her, whatever she do, little monsters. And she came really very humble to my house and asked me if I can teach her. We made this workshop in the woods, and she was such a good student. She never cheated. She really went much farther than I asked her for.
She is a limitless human being. As myself, a self-proclaimed pop performance artist, want to go home and slit my wrists, and I am nothing. I've achieved no sense of art. She is so boundless.
Čuli za performance zbog Lady Gaga, odjednom su počeli da se interesuju za moj rad, tako da prešla sam iz te, mislim, normalne kulture u mas kulturu, što je...
Marina Abramovic, of course, is in the Podesta emails, and she's the one that conducts the spirit cooking dinners. She said that Marina did an exercise with her where she stripped her completely naked and left her in the middle of the woods to fend for herself and find her way back. Those are the kinds of things that people who are behind the MKUltra programs do to children that they're mind controlling. We know Marina Abramovic is a Satanist. You Google Marina Abramovic's name in Spirit Cooking, and you will find hundreds of pictures of Marina Abramovic's events where they will have, for example, a cake that looks like a human being, and they'll depict human cannibalism. And they claim they're not engaging in cannibalism. And you will find A-list actors and famous politicians and other very famous and successful, powerful business people at her events. They literally have food that look like human beings on dinner tables.
He's Italian and Greek, I mean, you know. And a very good cook. And a very good cook. And I'm sure there's something very nefarious about that risotto recipe. So
after I started researching the cult, I learned that Satanists believe that they have to reveal who they are in some way, shape, or form. So that is why we see a lot of these occult members in Hollywood constantly flaunting symbolism. We see the pyramid, the Illuminati pyramid a lot. We see the evil one eye constantly. It's always on the cover of magazines. We see these are supposed to be the 666 devil symbols. We constantly see those symbols. We also see pedophile symbols, the swirl or the triangle within a triangle.
I guarantee this wasn't his first.
And we also see a lot of these members of the cult go on their social media and they talk about raping children. They talk about worshiping Satan. And people write it off as a joke, but they're not joking. I don't care if you're a major comedian. You can't tell me that's funny because there is no joke about raping children that's funny.
You don't know what that is.
I have no idea.
You don't know. Jimmy Fallon doesn't know. David Letterman doesn't know.
We don't know.
All the comics and show business don't know what this is.
Takes guts to put out a film that does this because no one's done it up until now. But when that's done and people see these facts and they say, my gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about the Gulf of Tonkin. I didn't know that about the Vietnam War. My gosh. And they go in and they check it out and it's all true. And now they're seeing the dots. A good film will teach them how to practice critical thinking, to analyze what you're watching. If we can get people to analyze what they're watching, we've crossed a huge hurdle, because once they start analyzing it, they're going to see the dots, and typically the dots will connect themselves.
Liz Crokin put herself so far out in front that she was mocked. She was laughed at. She was called crazy. Well, let me ask you a question. For all those people that did that to Liz, does she seem so crazy now?
When you put all of those facts together and you use critical thinking, you realize this stuff is real. There's not one smoking gun. There's many small smoking guns that you have to piece together, and you have to use critical thinking to understand this stuff is real. So again, the bigger question is, now that Jeffrey Epstein's been exposed and he's allegedly dead, how many of his friends that were frequent visitors on his sex trafficking island were also involved in the rape, torture, and trafficking of children? And that's what Pizzagate is.
I guess what I'm asking you all to do is just disconnect for a second, stand back, look at the lyrics of your songs, look at the agendas of the movies, look at the messages of the media that you're absorbing. Because it's impossible to say that all of it's bad, like all of Hollywood is bad. That's not true. Like, it's like saying all of the CIA is bad. There's a lot of good people that work in both industries that aren't bad people. But if the people that control the narratives and the agendas are not good people, and they have different agendas, they can put that on you and you won't even notice it unless you stand back and look at things objectively.
I can't compromise anymore. That for me, that's not what life's about. I want to send a good message to my kids, and I want them to know that at the end of the day, their dad did what was right. and their dad fought for the good things in life. If I could ever get the opportunity to make movies that send out good messages, and then people start realizing that they can be good and that they can jump on the bandwagon of good, that's the next phase. People start believing it. It's the same thing with desensitizing with the violence. People start believing that it's okay to kill somebody, or watching somebody die isn't a big deal. When people aren't helping other people in need on the streets, there's a problem in this world. But this could all be changed right now. The reason why I'm doing this documentary is because I want to be one of the first people to come out and say, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. We are good people. Humans are good, and we can make the world a better place, because the money and the technology to make this world a better place is there. It's just been covered up and controlled for so long that it's time for it all to come out. And maybe I'm the catalyst for something better.
What does the media look like in the future? Well, to me, what I would hope is that it's not filtered. I would love to build a platform or build some sort of system where artists could connect directly to their audience. I want to make products and tell stories that bring humanity together, that bring compassion, that bring love, that bring forgiveness, that bring inspiration and courage back to the audience without having the influence of violence or gratuitous sex or gratuitous death or gratuitous horror, because those are things and images that get stored in our psyche and our soul. And I don't think that's the way that this earth was intended to be.
Wow, that was that was really good. I don't know what to say. It's a lot to process, and my screen's a little fucked up. Give me a second here. So I take this off. Oh, it's not even working. Whatever. Yeah, the light's changing here. So. Yeah, just some notes I wrote down. I never actually, as far as the cover up on Pizzagate, I mean, I never actually even knew that was a thing until this year. And whether that is because I was not really paying attention to politics when I was younger and during that time, that could be a possibility, or it could be the possibility that because they tried to cover it up and then because they tried not to talk about it very much, that, some people just didn't see it, myself included. But I did read a little bit about it on just doing Google searches and stuff, but I just wasn't sure what to think. And that's the thing that really motivates me and drives me to keep just searching for this, and really what has changed that interest in politics and history is because of how important it's become and how little we can trust the old media, or the legacy media as some people call it. And that was another thing too I wanted to mention, is the fact that people who, Anna Brees talks about this, like she calls it new media, old media, or Rollo Tomassi calls it legacy media, just these new forms of channels that are coming to fruition and coming to the general public's knowledge, right? General public is very naive, they're brainwashed by mainstream media. And another thing too that affects this is the demographics of people as well. For example, speaking on my families, as far as I know, the only people who watch CNN or Fox, or let's call it legacy media or old media, is my grandparents, and that it seems that demographic. Whereas the generation below, so that would be like my parents, what those are the boomers, or I don't even know what they are. I guess they're middle-aged now, middle-aged people now. It seems like they're at the fringe kind of edge, the outskirts of the demographics in the time period when people would routinely watch that. Because I mean, even myself, I remember coming home from basketball practice or athletic practice in the evenings from school, and give me 1 second. That's a little better. I remember coming home from basketball practices, soccer practices, just athletic practices in general, and Brian Williams would be on at 6 o'clock, and the noise of the intro theme and the audio, that I'll always remember that. I'll never forget it. And it was part of the routine, right? My mom would put it on right before dinner as she was cooking, and it became part of kind of our weekday routine much of the time. And I think that is true for many Americans as well. And that tradition is just, it's going away, and it's going to be gone eventually because of this distrust in the media. But let's talk about this documentary, man. I want to find out this guy's name because I actually don't know his name, but I saw somebody actually message me on my Discord about Liz Crokin, who is the woman journalist that was mentioned at the end there. She kind of led the narrative and the back half or the back third of the documentary there. So I do want to look into her more, because people have been mentioning her too. I think somebody mentioned her in my comments as well. So yeah, just that, and like the imagery of Hollywood in the images too. I feel like some of them were a little bit of a stretch, because the triangle is such a common shape, right? I mean, you can see a triangle many places in it's a basic geometrical shape, right? Like the pyramids were created in, it's a triangular 3-dimensional prism. But that's kind of my only critique with regards to the imagery. I mean, I remember seeing this in college, and there was a video of Kanye West there too. And that's kind of interesting because Kanye is such a controversial figure. He was my favorite rapper growing up. He was my first favorite rapper. My first album I got was Graduation by Kanye West. So I loved him growing up, but I just became disenfranchised and disillusioned with how he became when I was older, and the past few years, really. Now he's gotten better recently, but his music video for the song Power, for example, you see a lot of that same imagery that he talks about, or the documentary showed. So it's something that I had noticed in the past too, or like with Katy Perry's music videos too, because like, who has been on YouTube and has not seen a Katy Perry music video, right? I mean, that's a great point, and that's something people don't really think about either. Is the power of celebrities. It's like nobody thinks about it because you're like, nobody really knows, right? I mean, you can go on CNN's Twitter, but as far as their weekly broadcasts or weekend broadcasts, most people generally don't know what those numbers are off the top of their head. Whereas, like, if you ask a young person how many followers so-and-so has, they're probably going to know that. And that's just a huge point that he makes because of how much influence that these celebrities have over us. And fortunately, a lot of them have shut up since that dumb video, that Imagine video, the Beatles music video that I don't know whose idea that was, but that was really, really genius. But yeah, man, I mean, if more people are interested in this too, because this is something that I am getting into as well. and I definitely would not consider myself an expert. I'm a student in this, and I that's why I don't want to make declarations, because I don't know if what I'm about to say is a fact. So I'm learning along with you guys. Let me know what you think about this format for videos, and just going over reactions or reviews. I just did it on a whim because I was watching this anyway on my bed. So I was like, let me see what some viewers think of this, and if anybody wanted to watch. So that was my thinking on it. Thought Liz and Kevin wanted out of film lawsuit. I've been following Liz Crokin for years. She has been through hell and she's never given up. Yeah, I'll look into her more. So just let me know what you guys think. If I like this format, don't like it, whatever. And sorry about the light. I was so into the documentary that I didn't even notice the lighting going down. So you'll have to excuse me on that one. But as far as other places to search for, I would say David Icke is a great source of info for this, Sean Atwood, and yeah, just those are two places to start if anybody's interested in reading more about this. Now, that being said, I haven't gone through all those guys' materials, so I can't speak on every single piece of work those guys have done. That being said, got more videos in the works, so be tuned for that. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers and have a great evening. Ciao.